Sirens swallowed the shouting as filthy water exploded up to my floor drain, crawling across my living room like it had a mind of its own. County trucks sealed off my driveway, lights strobing, hoses snapping into place with sharp metallic cracks. I barely made it outside before someone shoved an HOA notice into my hands. Issued while my house was still actively flooding. Across the yard, the HOA president stood completely dry, phone raised, recording everything with a calm smile like this chaos was expected, like it belonged. She said the damage could stop immediately if I paid her emergency assessment. Then the county engineer behind me leaned closer, lowering his voice just enough to cut through the noise. Whoever did this didn't just cause a backup. They rerouted the entire neighborhood. And if I'm right, one house is about to pay for all of it. Marble Cross didn't hesitate. She stepped past the county cones, heels clicking against wet concrete, and told the crew to hold off like she owned the operation. When one worker paused, unsure, she lifted her phone slightly and said, "The HOA is assuming temporary control. Document everything." Then she turned toward me, finally pretending concern. "This is what happens when homeowners ignore association directives," she said smoothly, her tone practiced and controlled. One sentence, clean, sharp, effective. That was all she needed to shape the narrative. I was the problem. She was the solution. Marble had been HOA president for 6 years, long enough to forget where her authority stopped. She spoke in fines, deadlines, and emergency powers as if the neighborhood were a system she owned. The so-called emergency was a special assessment she had forced through just days earlier, money she claimed was needed for infrastructure upgrades. When I asked for documentation, she answered with threats. Now she gestured lightly toward my flooded entryway. "Sign the agreement," she said quietly, "and we'll make this go away." Behind her, a deputy kept his camera trained on everything. A county official frowned at the tablet in her hands, scrolling through permits that hadn't existed a month ago. I caught a glimpse of one line before she angled the screen away, an easement adjustment stamped and filed far too quickly. Marble leaned closer, her voice dropping so only I could hear. "You should have paid," she said. "This neighborhood needs progress. There's always someone who resists." Water continued pouring out of my house as she stepped back under the awning, untouched, already acting like the damage was settled. That was the moment it clicked. This wasn't about a fee. It was about control. And she had already arranged everything. The situation didn't pause just because my floors were underwater. Within an hour, bright orange tape stretched across my yard, stapled to stakes like a crime scene perimeter. An HOA notice appeared on my door, already laminated, declaring my property a temporary safety hazard under association authority. The timestamp came after the flooding began. Marble never raised her voice. She didn't have to. She stood beside a clipboard, calmly directing people where they could and couldn't step on my own lawn. When I moved toward the clean-out access near the curb, she blocked me with one hand. "Unauthorized interference will result in penalties," she said flatly. Behind us, the water kept gurgling. A contractor I didn't recognize crouched near my foundation, taking photos, zooming in on cracks caused by the surge. "HOA documentation," he muttered when I asked who hired him. He avoided my eyes and kept shooting. Neighbors began drifting outside, confused, whispering. One asked if it was a city issue. Marble answered before I could. "Non-compliance escalated into damage," she said smoothly. "We warned him." I tried again to speak to the county crew, but she cut in, insisting all communication go through the HOA for efficiency. Then she handed me a single-page agreement. Pay the assessment, grant temporary access rights, waive claims, and tap the signature line with a manicured nail. "This stops today if you cooperate." Behind her, the tape snapped in the wind. Inside my walls, water churned louder. For the first time, I felt the shift from a bad morning to something intentional. By late afternoon, the HOA made it official. An email hit every homeowner's inbox. Emergency infrastructure action, Red Rock Terrace. It framed the flooding as an unforeseen failure and named my property as the point of instability. Attached was a board authorization I had never seen, stamped urgent and effective immediately. Marble returned with 2 silent board members, both filming. She read from the document like it carried legal weight. Temporary access rights, inspection authority, warnings of severe fines for noncompliance. No amounts listed. Somehow, that made it worse. Then came the inspection notice. Slipped under my door. Full compliance review within 24 hours. Drainage, grading, foundation impact. The language felt familiar, borrowed from county templates, but altered just enough to sound official. But it wasn't a threat that caught my attention. It was a map on her tablet. A drainage diagram flashed. One that didn't match the neighborhood I knew. A runoff line that used to direct water away from her block had been rerouted. Subtle, clean, precise, toward mine. The filing date was recent. Too recent. I asked where the map came from. She smiled. Updated records. Behind her, one board member swallowed hard. The other avoided my gaze entirely. That was when I realized this had grown far beyond a personal dispute. The HOA wasn't just enforcing rules anymore. It was operating like a system, one that had already decided where the damage would land, and I was standing exactly where they aimed it. I waited until the county crews left before opening my laptop. Water still dripped somewhere inside the walls as I searched the public records portal, parcel, then easement. It didn't take long to find what she never expected anyone else to notice. A stormwater interceptor amendment filed under an emergency clause. No hearing, no notice. The original map routed runoff west, away from homes. The amended version bent the line just enough to send flow across my property before reconnecting to the system. The signature wasn't forged. It was worse. It had been rushed, digitally approved in a window so tight it reeked of coordination. Then I found the attachment. An internal memo labeled Site Viability Summary. It referenced a parcel next to marbles, ideal access, improved drainage, projected value increase in the low seven figures once constraints were removed. The mitigation plan? My property, absorb overflow, document instability, justify reclassification, clean on paper, brutal in reality. My hands shook once, just once. This was never about a fee. It was about money. Developer money, and I had been chosen as the pressure point. Fear hit fast, then burned away into something colder. Resolve. I cross-checked everything. Dates, archives, saved copies twice. Then my phone buzzed. Blocked number. You're making this harder than it needs to be, a calm voice said. I looked at the documents again. No, I replied. You already did. Because now I understood. The damage wasn't collateral. It was a plan. The county didn't need my permission to notice the discrepancies. By morning, a hydrology reviewer flagged the amendment and froze all work tied to it. A red stop work notice appeared in the public portal, followed by a request for original submissions and justification. The tone shifted immediately from administrative to investigative. A city attorney called, asking me to walk through everything step by step. I stuck to facts, dates, filings, the rerouted line. He went quiet when I mentioned the emergency clause. That requires imminent risk, he said, not convenience. A surveyor arrived unannounced, checked grades, measured flow direction, frowned at the numbers. This doesn't match the file plan, he muttered. His report went straight to the county. Marble tried to regain control, emailed the board, claimed the stop work was temporary, accused me of obstructing repairs. The message leaked within minutes. So did the county's reply, stating clearly the HOA had no authority to alter stormwater infrastructure. Then the contractor called. I didn't approve that route, he said tightly. They told me it already was. I gave him the county number. By afternoon, an incident briefing was scheduled at the community center. County officials, legal, HOA board, mandatory attendance. Marble texted once. You're about to embarrass yourself. I didn't reply. Instead, I sent one email to every homeowner. No commentary, no accusations, just 3 attachments. The original map, the amended filing, and the developer memo. Subject line. For transparency before tonight's meeting. Replies came fast, confusion, then anger. Past flooding complaints resurfaced. Old warnings. Patterns emerged. It wasn't just me anymore. The contractor called back again, admitted pressure, backdated approvals, promised payment. He'd saved everything. Already sent it to the county. I'm done covering for this, he said. By evening, sheriff units lined the community center parking lot. Inside, chairs filled quickly. Phones buzzed nonstop. Marble arrived last, composed, controlled, confident. She caught my eye and smiled like she still believed she could bend the outcome. As the county manager opened the briefing, she leaned close and whispered, "You think this ends with me?" The doors shut. Silence took over. The manager didn't waste time. This is now an official incident review. Everything changed. Marble stepped forward immediately, speaking fast, blaming runoff, aging systems, and a non-cooperative homeowner. She framed herself as a protector. For a moment, it almost worked. Then the hydrology supervisor interrupted. One question: who authorized the reroute of Interceptor Line C on April 14th? Marble hesitated, just long enough. The map appeared behind her. Before you answer, the manager added, "This meeting is recorded. False statements have consequences." The room shifted. She forced a smile. "Of course. I'm happy to clarify." The lights dimmed. The truth came up on screen. Side-by-side maps. Original and amended. The difference was undeniable. No hearing. No review. Emails. Timestamps. Emergency approvals in minutes. Contractor messages. Pressure. Payment promises. The developer memo. Millions in projected gain tied to mitigated drainage. No commentary needed. Just evidence. Marble's control slipped. Denials turned to contradictions. Blame shifted. Board members distanced themselves in real time. "That's not true," one said. The sheriff's lieutenant stepped forward. "This matter is being referred for criminal review." Everything stopped. The HOA board was suspended. A temporary administrator appointed immediately. Marble was asked to step aside. No applause, just stunned silence. As she was escorted out, she glanced back once. This isn't over. But it was. The seal came off the wall. Power didn't fade. It snapped. The room exhaled. Neighbors shifted, apologized, connected the dots. Anger settled into something heavier. Understanding. The administrator outlined next steps. Legal action, restitution, policy changes. Runoff would be restored to its original path. Outside, the rain softened. Inside, something steadier replaced control, accountability. For the first time since the flooding began, I stood still without bracing. The system was finally working the way it should. Pressure released. Flow restored. I looked once at the empty chair Marble had occupied. Then I went home, knowing the water would move past my house now. Not through it.